In astrology, Pluto is simply known to be the planet of death and rebirth. But when it comes to our birth chart, Pluto means so much more. Based off of my experience as a professional astrologer, Pluto really does, in our chart, represent some of our greatest generational trauma and what our familial wounds are, specifically associated with our parents. And so understanding the sign your Pluto is in is extremely important for healing your familial wounds, moving past your major or minor trauma, and becoming someone who's completely transformed. So in this video specifically, I want to give you your quick and deep dive overview into what it means to specifically have your Pluto in the sign of Virgo in your chart so that you can heal your greatest wounds. Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Isabelle, your spiritual rebel friend, and today we are talking about what it means to have your Pluto in the sign of Virgo, because ever since the beginning of the year, I have had a massive boom in clientele who have this placement, which is saying both not a lot and a lot in the sense that Pluto takes a long time to finish its transit, roughly around, I think, 20 years to go through each sign. And more, as we have the South Node currently in Virgo, I've noticed how much understanding Pluto has become so prevalent for so many, because Pluto is not just simply death and rebirth or transformation, or maybe even our self-destructive tendencies. On a deeper level, it shows us our generational wounds, whether that's major or minor traumas or unconscious beliefs that are passed down to us through the generations. So in today's video specifically, I am going to cover common misconceptions about Pluto, Pluto explained in depth, the Virgo archetype, Pluto in Virgo specifically explained, and how to apply this knowledge. So if you are someone who not only likes to take in the information of astrology, but also know what to do with that in your average day-to-day life, watch through to the end of this video where I'm going to share some of my top tips for working through the energies of Pluto and utilizing them to your benefit to live in a healed way. And before we get any further, be sure to book a reading in the link in the description below, where in 1 hour we can dive deep into any and everything about your chart, whether that's Pluto, transits over Pluto, which if your Pluto's in Virgo, you're having a major transit right now with the South Node here, and so much more. So career readings, love readings, travel readings, sky is the limit with these readings. If you enjoy this interpretation, simply put, these readings are meant for you. So book a reading in the link in the description below, and let me know if you have any questions down in the comments below. And if you already know all about the Virgo archetype, if you already know about Pluto, if you want to skip through these whole segments talking about your preface knowledge, so to say, before we talk about Pluto and Virgo specifically, jump to the timestamps by checking out the description box below, where I have timestamps for the different segments of this video. First and foremost, I want to recap some of the common misconceptions about Pluto, because I kid you not, I have actually had clients come to me who have Pluto in certain placements or conjunct certain planets, and they've asked me if that means they're going to die, basically. Am I destined to live a short life? And I've even had people say even crazier things like, am I going to be karmically imbalanced forever? Am I just destined for a life of failure? The list goes on. There's a lot of misconceptions about Pluto, because Pluto, frankly, has a very major word that YouTube's probably going to censor me for, that is fear-mongered, which is rebirth as well as death. And I think we miss the major point here. But oftentimes if we're learning about Pluto, we consider it to both be major in our transits. We are considering, for example, that Pluto entered Aquarius only recently. We say it's the age of Aquarius, but we consider it minor almost in our own charts, or if it's major, it's very detrimental. But astrology is really not meant to operate, I think, off of this idea of fear and hope, or even negative and positive. In the end, astrology, I think, is designed to help us gain a blueprint into how to understand ourselves and our limitations potentially. So with that in mind, what is the planet of Pluto really about? Pluto is, yes, the planet of death and rebirth, but this is not meant to be taken literal. This is meant to be metaphorical, in the idea that we all have something we are here to transform as a collective, an archetype of the Zodiac wheel that certain generations are going to have more misconstrued ideas about than others. For example, the millennial generation, for the most part, has their Pluto in Scorpio, and all millennials generally seem to agree that their parents or their family was very emotionally volatile, which has called them to live very stable lives overall because they didn't like the volatility that they were raised with. So whatever sign your Pluto's in tells you what it is you're here to transform. But on a deeper level, what it really represents in that is it's going to tell you what your generational wounds are, or the wounds that are passed down to you through your ancestors, so to say. I've noticed from experience with clients as a professional astrologer, I've met with hundreds of people in the last few months in this year, and many of which had a Pluto in Virgo. And it resonates across the board that Pluto really does show us what our upbringing was like, what the negative association we have in our upbringing. That's not to say that all of our upbringings are all negative, but it shows us what our wound was that we felt in childhood, especially in association to our parents, but not necessarily always our parents. Hence why I say this could be generational. For some people, Pluto is not just the thing they transform, but it's something that they're transforming from their entire lineage, a pattern they're healing from their entire lifetime. On the other hand, this could be in a more simple way for some people. This is the quality that they're transforming, that they are transforming because their parents didn't model necessarily the most positive aspects of the zodiac sign in which their Pluto is in. So in this case, maybe there was a whole generation of your family or lineage that has negative Virgo traits, or maybe for some people, this more so applies as my parents just weren't necessarily promoting the most positive mentality around the Virgo archetype, Virgo traits of being selfless and so on. So Pluto, in summary, tells us the traits we are here to transform as a collective, but where it sits specifically in your chart, not just the sign, the house, that is what you specifically are transforming about this archetype. So understanding your Pluto can tell you what your deep unconscious wounds are around that you were raised with in your family, whether that's through relatives, parents, or something else. And it's the qualities that may unconsciously limit you because of that. It is our generational wound. It's our unconscious trauma in many ways, which trauma doesn't necessarily always have to mean something big. It can mean something small for some. And so with that, by understanding the sign your Pluto is in, by understanding the placement of your Pluto, you can understand what it is you need to transform to become healed and to not partake, so to say, in unconscious self-destructive patterns. Because yes, Pluto is still the planet of death and rebirth. And so when unconscious, this can be energies that you basically are unconscious programmings from childhood that you're playing out, and they're keeping you limited from living the life that you desire. So now that you have your overview into Pluto, what does it mean specifically to have your Pluto in Virgo? And before we dive into Pluto in Virgo, I want to talk a bit about the Virgo archetype as a brief summary. Virgo is the archetype of effort, truly. In the first 5 zodiac signs that we interact with before Virgo, which is Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, this is really all about developing ourselves, our passion, our desires, our emotional awareness, emotional security, and our curiosity. It's a very selfish journey, so to say, but a needed selfish journey. Virgo is still about the self-experience primarily. It's all about the I, but it's how do I serve? Virgo is where we learn the concept for the first time that there is a benefit and a reward to be gained in life, a fulfillment to be found in selflessly serving others. And so Virgo, simply put, is the archetype of the servant, also known as the virgin. They're supposed to represent pure intentions, pure mind, and pure selflessness, so to say. Common other words associated with Virgo are going to be practicality, detail orientation, and analysis, because Virgo, as a earth sign yet ruled by Mercury, is very detail oriented. They see that the best way to serve the world around them is by observing the details, being aware of their material reality, and practically implementing strategies, services based off of that. And so if you know a Virgo, if someone you know is a Virgo sun or moon, this is someone who takes, or rising, This is someone who has a very practical aura to them and very task oriented. Because they're so attuned to the details, these people can get very much caught up in menial tasks oftentimes, especially for Virgo suns. So there's a detail oriented nature, but the root of concept here comes back to the fact that Virgo is an earth sign. And again, ruled by Mercury, which means that they see the material world in meticulous amount of detail, and they are focused on material results. Hence why Virgo is so selfless. They are focused on giving a material result, whether that is, let me cook you dinner, let me be impeccable with my word, let me correct your grammar, let me get straight A's. It's all about the material reality for Virgos. They are focused on the material human experience so that they can be selfless and give and be hardworking. So now that you have that general overview of Virgo, this selfless, detail-oriented, analytical sign that is both an earth sign yet ruled by Mercury, which gives them a heightened mental capability for the material. What does it exactly mean to have your Pluto in the sign of Virgo? And hopefully, per usual, I'm going to give real exaggerative movement to remember to put the darn dates over the screen for when Pluto was in Virgo. If you were born between these timelines, these dates, you have your Pluto in Virgo. And it's possible that I've missed a date. More than likely, I think I've done my research enough to have not missed a date. So if you are not born between these time slots, you likely don't have a Pluto in Virgo. You might have a Pluto in Leo instead, or in Libra. And so if your Pluto is in Virgo, you were likely someone who was raised to believe that your efforts are what you are recognized and loved for. Oftentimes what I've noticed from many clients who I've worked with who have Pluto in Virgo, they feel this sense that they were raised in a household where either they were pushed, encouraged, and pressured into putting hard work in, or simply put, their parents modeled a behavior of hard efforts. So in one interpretation, this is someone who had parents who were always pressuring them to succeed, get straight A's, be the best on the team, the all-star athlete. In another interpretation, these are people who feel like they were raised in a household with parents who were very tired. One or more parent who was very tired because they were working extreme amounts of hours. We can also see collectively just during this timeline, this is roughly a time, at least from experience as I've heard, where both parents had to work at least a full 9-to-5 job. More likely it was 2 jobs is what I've heard across the board. And so there's this aura of exhaustion that parents were bringing back home, and yet value for their hard efforts. There was almost this victim mentality for those who have a Pluto in Virgo. Oftentimes have parents who held this mentality of, you're just supposed to work hard. It doesn't matter how smart you work harder, not smarter. And so Pluto in Virgos carry this unconscious wound or belief around, I'm only going to be valued for my efforts, and to put effort in is all I can do. And so I must simply put, in a way, burn myself out. Really though, the root wound, the root thing that is being called to transform if you have a Pluto in Virgo is your perception of the material world, which sounds like a really big concept here, I know. But talking about the Virgo archetype, Virgo in the end as a earth sign and ruled by Mercury sees incredibly the material world. So much in the material world, heightened sense for the material world. Everything is material. There is no spiritual, there is no energy. It's just a matter of what you do and how you do it. Even if how you do it is just simply how you speak. So there's, with a Pluto in Virgo, an overemphasis on the material, feeling like everything has to be material. For the clients I've had who have a Pluto in Virgo, it's very hard for them, they feel, to get out of this mentality that there should be a practical result for things. Even if it's, there's a need almost for it to be a task or be practical, in the sense of, maybe you allow yourself to relax more. Maybe you think about this in a non-linear way. And they'll say, in a way, okay, so what's the linear way of me actually trying to think about things in a non-linear way? Can you give me like a task sheet? Or how can I turn this into a practical reward? Getting out of the mentality that everything has to be practical and have a result is the greatest wound for a Pluto in Virgo. They feel this sense that everything they do and how they do everything they do must be linear. And so while Virgo traits can be very positive, when Pluto is in Virgo, regardless of what other planets are here, there is a unconscious familial pattern associated with this. And so becoming aware of that unconscious pattern is extremely huge for these people. And especially right now, if you're watching this video as of the publishing at the beginning of April of 2025, the South Node is currently transiting Virgo. And so this whole generation is feeling a collective draw to heal this wound with effort, to pave the way and help future generations, current generations, and one another understand what kind of effort to truly put in. Does this mean that if you're a Pluto in Virgo, you shouldn't put any effort in at all, that you should be lazy and impractical? Not necessarily. In fact, Pluto is the planet of transformation. So those who have a Pluto in Virgo, while they may have the greatest wounds associated with practicality, analysis, selflessness, and hard work, they are also simultaneously the generation that is here to transform the Virgo archetype and redefine it for our society. So it's a very important role that you guys play, especially in modern day where it seems like everyone I know is at least working 2 jobs to make ends meet. We're being valued for our effort, not our expertise. And so if you have a Pluto in Virgo, this idea of effort and practicality, materialism, and systemization is one you are here to transform. And the first way to do that is by seeing maybe how your parents or society modeled that for you. So maybe it wasn't your parents who modeled this hardworking, be drained all the time, just work hard and rest on the weekends mentality. Maybe instead this was a societal thing. The people you're surrounded by were maybe all super focused on their tasks and were not interested in just spirituality maybe. There's a few different ways this can play out. I'm only touching on the one that I've noticed the most, and I'm sure there's other traits that I could do for Pluto in Virgo, but I'm going to keep it at that for today, and maybe there will be a sub-series talking about other traits that come up with a Pluto in Virgo. So that's your key takeaway on what it means to have your Pluto in Virgo. The question is, now that you maybe understand a bit better what this means to have this, what do you do with that information? I want to take the last few minutes of this video to talk about some practical tips for applying this knowledge. So per usual, the process I usually recommend for any sort of challenging astrological placements, such as Chiron, Black Moon, Lilith, or in this case, Pluto, the first step is awareness. And I really accentuate this for Pluto more so than the other points I've mentioned, because Pluto represents our generational wounds, and we cannot heal these qualities. We cannot change these qualities and these beliefs about how we should embrace these qualities until we are truly aware of how these traits were modeled in our early years. So look back to your childhood, your early years, even your early 20s. What kind of behaviors were you surrounded by around Virgo? And did your parents model a hardworking behavior? Specifically, were you surrounded by anyone, whether the parents or not, who modeled this behavior of focusing too much on the material? Were you valued for only your material results? Were you valued for always giving something practical? Were you valued for being fully selfless? Were your parents modeling these things? Were they only valuing themselves if they were selfless? Were they saying that they're only valued if they're selfless? Were they saying that hard work is the only way to get along? Observe if any of the qualities that I have described for Pluto in Virgo were qualities you described were present in your childhood. Identifying key moments. Were your parents hardworking? Were they working many jobs? Were they only asking you about your material rewards? Were they not the kind of parents to ask, how are you feeling? And instead just said, did you get good grades today? These are all things that could contribute to your Pluto in Virgo wounds and keep it unconscious. So we're trying to bring this to the conscious mind in order to transform it. Once you have a clear picture on how exactly these Pluto in Virgo wounds were created for you, whether that's major or minor wounds, the next step in this process, from what I've described for clients, is really working with, in a way, the contradicting counter energy to process this, or even simply put, trying to resist the urge to do, especially for, in this case, Pluto in Virgo. So for example, what I mean by that is with a Pluto in Virgo, and especially prevalent right now as we have the North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo, maybe reaching into more Piscean traits can help balance out your Pluto's transformation and wounds. It can be very healing to focus more on spirituality, how you make people feel, empathy, compassion, and emotion and energy rather than tasks. So that's one thing. But also with that as well, catching when you feel the urge to be valued for your efforts, when you catch that inner dialogue, when you feel the need to act on it, that can be the most powerful change for a Pluto in Virgo, to identify, ooh, I feel like I need to bring something material. I feel like in this dialogue, I feel like as I'm watching this video, I need to turn this into a task sheet to heal my Pluto. Is this all is this all your Pluto energy? How are you trying to make things more material? And what does it look like to be non-linear about things? And also the final thing I'd recommend for Pluto in Virgo is not only just observing the wounds, observing when practicality, materialism, all these traits enter your field of consciousness, enter your peripheral vision, so to say, but also you're here to redefine Virgo. So maybe doing a deep dive into the Virgo archetype and asking yourself, how do I personally see that we could all embrace this better? Or how could I embrace this better? Redefining the Virgo archetype and how you would see it showing up better and healthier in your personal life and for the collective can be one of the greatest steps towards healing and transforming Pluto, because you guys are here to transform these traits. You can do that in collective ways or in personal ways by modeling that behavior. So where do you want to define effort? How much of a materialistic outlook do you think we should take on the world? How much do you feel we should be valued for our material efforts? How much do you feel that being selfless is important? How much selflessness do you think is needed in a day? Really asking yourself these questions, looking through each trait of Virgo and asking yourself, how much should I embrace this? And looking to the contrary, once again, looking to Pisces to see the contrast and say, how could this be just as valuable as well? Overall, with a Pluto in Virgo, there are some great wounds to overcome, but great power to be gained from transforming these traits and healing these wounds. So let me know, Pluto in Virgo, in the comments below. Did this video resonate for you? Do you feel like this encompassed what it means to have a Pluto in Virgo? Do you have other planets in Virgo in your chart? How has the beginning of this year been so far for you, with the fact that we have the South Node in Virgo, which is highlighting your need to heal these wounds? Are you feeling this energy? Did this resonate for you? Let me know your thoughts in your comments below, and be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and stay tuned for more videos breaking down the stars and more. I love hearing your guys' feedback on what you want to hear about next. So if you want more videos breaking down Pluto through the signs, such as Pluto in Libra or Pluto in Scorpio, let me know in the comments below and I'll be sure to film about it. So your feedback's appreciated. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have more questions about your chart, if you want to dive deeper into your chart, if you want more practical guidance on healing your Pluto, book a reading down below. Link is in the description box below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Sincerely hope you enjoyed. Once again, my name is Isabelle, and from my heart to yours, namaste.